Here we are, 2022 Cross Country National Championship.
And this men's 10K championship race.
They watched the women do it, now it is the men's turn.
I guess this is the NCAA meet, judging by the big blue dot we've got there, right?
Again, I miss this so much. This is such a fun feeling. You know, they've worked so hard all summer, all fall. You know, they've had their ups and downs, every single one of them. But when that gun goes off and you get to storm down, you know, you don't get to do this very often at the state meet and at the NCAA cross country meet. And sometimes when you're older as a pro, you get to do it at the World Championships. But really, this is just a really phenomenal moment in an athlete's career that's really fun. You know, you're just you're establishing your race, you're finding your position. And I just miss it so much. I loved it.
A dual meet it is not.
No. No.
Well, you see the front athletes, they get out hard, they still have another 6 miles to run, but they're looking around and they're trying to see where's my team, where are the main contenders, what jerseys are the teams we're trying to beat in. And you just now, as the fans are behind you, you start to settle a little bit and you say, we're here.
And you know what I love about all of this? We have 800-meter specialists. We have 1,500-meter runners. We have 10K. We have guys that are going to be marathoners. Like, this is just that great melting pot, as we say every year, of runners. And now they are having to step up to the 10K distance for a lot of these athletes. It's a long ways to go.
Well, and you look at that, and yes, it takes some energy to get out to the front, but it's also, if you get in that pack too far back, it's energy to get through all those people as well to get yourself back up to that front of the pack.
And I don't think Nico Young, Kai Robinson, Charles Hicks, Drew Bosley, all the men that we were expecting to be up there, they're there immediately.
You know, the one thing I love about the men's course, and we talked about this yesterday when we were running it, you know, they get this first 2K loop that is, you know, it's a little bit of rolling, but it's nice and smooth. You have a little bit more time to get in to your groove, and I really like that about this course. I mean, the women, you know, have it tough in that 6K too, but they have a little bit of a downhill first K. These guys get to kind of go in and do that little loop, and it's nice.
Something I was expecting, which I do think is happening, was that the men's race was going to be a little bit more tactical, because a lot of the athletes here that are vying for the individual title are also in it for the team title, and we just saw Caitlin Toohey do that, run a little bit more conservative in the first half of the race. And I guess Nico Young just heard me say that and said, I'll show you otherwise.
Can I just clarify that we ran the course yesterday? When you say that, you mean you and Kyle ran
we can
the
loop you in.
You
don't have to even tell anyone
right,
that.
It's very gracious of you to say that, but no. So Nico Young goes through the first K in 2:39. They went through, last time out here, it was Wesley Kiptoo, like 2:30. And that was just a smoke show to go through. And Dave Smith had said, I'm looking more 39, 40, maybe even 43. But Young's out there, and Charlie's right behind old floppy hair with the headman.
I do see Fergal Curtin there from FSU, the Cork man. Now, my question, Carrie, we make a big deal of where people are from.
Yes.
You know, you grew up running real cross country. It's cold, it's wet, it's windy. Does that make a difference that, you know, an athlete like Fergal who grew up in Ireland's out here versus someone who maybe grew up in Kenya?
I think he's not afraid of it, but, you know, we just saw Parker Valby, who is a Florida gal. And, I mean, yes, you guys are claiming her from Connecticut, but her major time of running and training has been in Florida, and she just conquered it. She said, you know, she's a little bit chilly. She didn't have socks on. I mean, Chris Solinsky's her coach. She's from Wisconsin, for crying out loud. Have the girl wear some socks. But, you know, I think everyone is out here, and they're so tough. And, you know, for us, at least, I think the Midwesterners, they want the cold, the snow, whatever else, just to get in people's heads.
So Nico's out in front. Some of the other guys we're going to probably watch and be up in the pack. You got Alex Mayer, who's going to come from Oklahoma State, run well. Kai Robinson, we mentioned, the Australian from Stanford. Casey Klingler, who, if it's possible, criminally underrated because he ran behind Connor Mant so many times. There's Charlie. Victor Kiprop, not to be lost with Alabama, really good. Aaron Bidenfield, who's at Oregon, is going to be in that pack. Dylan Jacobs, the Notre Dame transfer, now running for Tennessee. Acer Iverson, as we touched on, Harvard's going to be in there. Two-time big champ Bob Leichling from Wisconsin's going to be in there. So there are a lot of good names that will be up here that will make this a race, not just tactical, but it'll be plenty quick by the time we get done.
In the early part of this race, we're seeing athletes like Casey Klinger and Victor Kiprop, Alex Mayer, maybe a little bit deeper in more the 30 range. But you know, that's a second or two. They're right there. They're just not the ones up there front pushing. We did think that there was potential of Victor Kiprop coming in as one of the lone individuals who is, you know, not necessarily thinking about the team title in the same way as some of these other guys to be one to push. John, you've seen him run. Is this guy have a chance today? Because I feel like he's underrated. We're not talking about him.
Listen, I don't. Do you discount anybody here? No, seriously, I know that's the standard answer, but it's like, no, I think everybody here has bona fides and has to have a reason to be here. So I don't think, I discount anybody. Certainly not early in the race here as we're almost to the 2K mark. And by the way, as you watch this, and there's Nico Young, are Leo and Lex's brothers, are they rooting for him or are they rooting for Stanford?
Oh, that is a tough question.
Right?
You can root for both, John.
You
Come
think?
on.
I think you go blood on this one.
I think so too, probably. We don't have to put on the tree until next fall when they come out of there.
So Charles Hicks is happy to sit on the NAU duo. Charles, he grew up in London. He came over when he was 12 years old. He still competes for Great Britain. He was actually the U23 Euro Cross champion. He's headed back in a month to represent again. This is a guy who's just consistent. He's always up towards the front. If he's not winning the race, then he's right there. And I think he's not afraid of this early fast pace that Nico is setting. Clearly this was in the game plan, and it's nice to have a teammate next to you to help make it honest.
Quick look at the team comparison here through just a shade over 2K, and it's Stanford and NAU. I don't know that anybody's really racing right now. It's not quite the marathon where we're going to run for 20 and then race for 6, but I don't know that anybody's really at this point decided how this thing's going to go. That group right there has got a lot to say about this thing. And they're out. And in this case, right, that first 2K kind of loop they go through there is kind of nice because, Kyle, it gives me a chance to settle in before I have to start attacking those hills.
Yeah, I mean, we heard from the athletes, they got a chance to see the course and experience the hills from themselves. We saw from the women that it is a big decider in the race, how you get up them, and, from the men as well.
Yeah, well, let's hear what the men have to say about the hills.
I think hills are great, personally. I love them. I think it's always fun to run them. It gets a little bit of burn in the legs. And
we're out in Utah. We get to run in the Rocky Mountains on the weekends, and we're familiar with hills, so the more hills, the better.
It's not really about hills or flat. It's just about being mentally tough in the race and competing for each other, and I think we're all prepared for that, and it's going to be an exciting day.
So the hills, certainly they offer a challenge, but they also offer an opportunity, right? Because there's a place to maybe lose a guy or measure who you're next with and see what he might have.
And it's not even necessarily about the hill itself. It's when you come off the hills or you come off the downhills, your legs are now a little more beat up. So we're not going to see someone walk up the hill, but what we're going to see is that rather than running 4:40 pace, all of a sudden they're running 5-minute pace, and that's not going to be enough.
And even going up some of these hills, you cannot see the crest for a long time. I mean, you can lose people once you get over it because there is this kind of blind spot when you're climbing it. But, one thing I got to remind people of, Charles Hicks is one tough cookie. Remember that bloody nose that he ran through during the 10,000 meters outdoors? I mean, he's just a fun guy. He's so well-spoken, but he's tough as nails. And he said yesterday he's going for this team title. But obviously, the lower the stick he can get, the better, and he wants this individual win as well, and he's running that way right now.
So we had 3 here that have decided to kind of break away and go to the front with Young, Bosley, and Hicks. But even the pack behind is much thinner than we saw this early in the race on the women's side.
Reminiscent of what happened here when Connor Mance won in 2021 of March, whatever you want to say. But, they went out hard up front, and then the pack closed in. Again, like the women's race today, we saw Caitlin Toohey let things happen for the first 2-3K and then slowly start reeling them in. Is that what's happening here? I'm not sure. The other question is, does Northern Arizona have that 5th guy, 6th guy that can help push that team title? And, maybe this is where Drew Bosley and Nico Young are definitely running more on their own and hoping things follow suit behind them.
Stanford is just slowly moving up. As we got the splits, we see them go from 48 to 42 to 28th for their 5th man. He is going to be the key there, Boyden. And he's right now in perfect position. They have 76 points. In the last 10 years, the average has been 91 points. And when you think about it, John, if you go 1st, 10th, 20th, 30th, 40th, 5 All-Americans, it sounds quite good. That's only 101 points. That's we need less than that.
Yeah, the century mark puts you right on the edge, right? Some years it wins, and then some years 100's third, because you get a team that comes through and won 24. Look at when Stanford won here 19 years ago in 2003. It was the largest margin ever. They put up a 24, and Wisconsin rolled home at 174.
Wow.
You know, so I don't know that we have anybody ready for that. Look at our boy Freeze driving the lead cam right there. Sean McCabe's out there from Oklahoma State University doing it. Up front, we know Nico. Listen, our guy Bosley has come through. He was 13th a year ago, 62nd the year before that, and then he was 22nd. So you can get some fluctuations. It just shows like you can be really good and you can be really fit, and where you go and finish can sometimes seem very random when you just look at the results.
We definitely see guys who have, a mediocre season show up today. It's the big dance. They all of a sudden they have the adrenaline. They know that everyone's counting on them, and they have these heroic performances. Looking back at the season, we saw BYU there in third. Earlier in the season at the Nuttycombe Invitational, we saw them, run great. They finished second to Stanford, but they were without their top two athletes. And now we insert them into the picture today, and how do they match up? We'll find out here over the next 6K.
They went through the 3K mark in A18. That's pretty sporty, don't you think, as they come through here? I tell you what, this is about the time in the race when a lot of times you introduce the commercial break, and we'll be right back. Yeah, we don't have those in this race. We're staying right here. We're just going to keep going and watching Nico, and we're going to watch Drew, and we're going to watch Charlie. But we're boys now. He lets me call him Chuck.
Drew Bosley right here. You can see he's pushing the pace. Nico's right there with him. Charles Hicks on their shoulder, but interesting to see Bosley really push right here.
Good spectators have managed to make it to all these different points. There's a lot of good viewing points, as Kyle pointed out. But some of that you got to be willing to risk a little, effort on your own part. Like you can stand at the start line and kind of mosey on down here to finish. But the real fans are out there crisscrossing this place.
One athlete that I'm going to be looking for closely here as we get these 4K splits is Colin Salmon from NAU. At the start of the year, we were told he was going to redshirt it. Now, this is one of the best high school track athletes of all time. He's run 148, 339, 356, and 10K is a little bit longer than that, but he was very successful in high school at the 5K distance. Coach Mike Smith said, we need him. And right now, at 3K, he was in, I believe, in the 90s, and 4K right now, that's the one name, because if NAU is going to win, they're going to need someone to really step up in that fifth position, and being outside the top 100, unfortunately, probably means you wouldn't win the race.
As they came around that turn, you saw some of the Air Force jerseys. We talked about a great season this Service Academy had. But you want to talk about running together. They're 71st, 72nd, 74th, 76th, and 77th.
I love it.
Right? Find your guys.
Yeah, find
Stay
your
with
guys.
me. Never leave your wingman. You're the Air Force, right? Never leave your wingman. We're right here, and we're staying. And like I said, they've had such a great season as they come through here. Luke Combs, Mason, Ethan Marshall's in there. He's a Kansas City youngster that's here running. And really good shape as we come up to 5K. Like, I feel like the race just started, and we're going to turn 5K here in just a few minutes. You forget how quick this goes.
I don't think that they feel that way.
No, they don't.
It is tough, especially when you're climbing that hill and you got to do it all over again.
I'm just pointing out the juxtaposition is then we're going to go to Austin this year for the NCAA Outdoor Championship. It takes 4 days.
So BYU, just a couple seconds spread there in third place. Their fifth is before anyone else is 31st in the team score right now. That is how BYU is going to win this race, is that fifth man just needs to keep moving up in the field, and luckily he has helped because more or less they're right next to the second, third, fourth guy.
Well, Ed Eistone said if he could count 7 people, he would win this race. He knows that he has the guys, and they all come from right there. Yeah. It is so cool. They all come within 30 miles of BYU's campus. They're all Utah guys. And they really are the ones to watch. They rank second coming into this race. I think these could be the ones to beat.
Yeah, and so many of these programs are international. They go worldwide to find different runners in here. And yeah, everybody's just close to home. As we take another look as they come out. So they run that loop again, but they're running it backwards this time.
As they approach 5K, I really think this is the opportunity now that chase pack, if they're going to reel this front three in, they've got to use this downhill. It's a long stretch. You're wide open. They've got a lot of guys, to work together. And who's going to be the one to, say to the peloton, let's get moving.
And in that 2K loop that we talked about, that initial 2K loop and the loop that they're going to enter now, this is really that moment where you can sort of figure out where you can go, but also mentally get back in this race, calm down, and realize you just have to enter those hills the final time before you make your run for home.
So we go through at 5K, and NAU is in first place. It's the 4 we talked about: NAU, Stanford, BYU, and Oklahoma State. Let's go down one, though, and let's give some love to the folks at Wake Forest. What a great season the Demon Deacons have had coming through. Weren't super great at the regional. Not always a good judge, right, because you kind of sometimes trade through that. But they're the ACC champs.
My former coach when I was at Texas, John Hayes, is now there at Wake Forest. And I know their training. These guys are strong. They were built for a 10K. And so to see them up here early in the first half of the race, I don't expect them to be going anywhere too far behind from that.
Now they come back behind the starting line as they come through and get ready for lap 2. This is a much easier 10K to keep track of, right? How many laps are there? 2. Right? I don't need the 25 lap counter. I just need 2. Hard to miscount 2.
Brody Hasty there, NAU's 5th man in 44th. We said at the start of the race, he was going to be the key here. In 2020, he was 44th. In 2019, he was 46th. So he is a guy who we know can be right around that 40th spot. And if he's the 5th man there, NAU might be able to pull it off. There
you take a look at the 5th runners for those top teams you talked about.
Yeah, Stanford with Mika Biron Rousseau, Creed Thompson, I believe he and his brother in here. Victor Shitsama, Victor is, he's a guy who I'm surprised right now is 5th for OSU because he can definitely be mixing it up. He's someone that I think is going to move up late in the race. He is very, very talented and has done this before. He's been OSU's top guy. He was 7th at the regional meet, but he's coming into his own.
Yeah, and Mika, for Stanford, their 5th runner right now, he is the guy that everyone relies on. He goes away for 2 months in the summer. He trains in the mountains by himself. He fishes. He makes his own food. He does all these things. And just to get into his own headspace, and then he comes back and he knows his job. He knows his role. It's to perform the best he possibly can, whether that's up in front or in the back. But he's got his job, and right now he's sticking to it.
They come through the 6K at just under 17 minutes. The women finished their 6K race. Tui ran 19:27. I just point that out because 19 women ran under the course record in that first race here. So it is tough, but as it turns out, the weather really conducive to running in this thing, actually.
Yeah, it's great. And right now, they might have some wind as they are tucking in behind each other. I really like the way that Charles Hicks looks right now. He looks locked in. He looks comfortable. It's almost like he's just saying, when are we going to go? When do I make my move here?
Tell me how much easier it is, even though they're breaking away, that those 3 are running together as opposed to Valby, who was out there solo.
Yeah, you get that feeling that you're actually in a race. It's not just a workout. It's not a tempo. Not that you don't generally have thousands of fans screaming their heads off for you in practice.
No.
But it's applied pressure at all points in the race, and you're not going to jog up a hill because no one's on top of you. If you take the gas off for 1 second, then you're no longer there.
These guys though they're used to bodies around them, whether that's in practice or in meets. And like this, these guys, all 3 of them can win individually today, but yet they go home and they go to practice and they have guys on their team that can win individually. So I think that they're all used to having that, but when someone is not used to having someone on their shoulder, it is a huge mental barrier to get over.
BYU has now taken that 2nd position. They're only 3 places behind Northern Arizona.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot to be sorted out here, and we talk about the increase of distance, right? You run 8K, you run 8K, you run 8K. Now we have these 10K races and 8 days apart. Those 2Ks are the one that separate everybody, and so I think it's foolish to not think that this thing will not be decided then in those last 2K. And these good teams, all of them, Kyle, right, they train for this distance. Even though they're running 8K, if you're a really good team and you aim for this meet, that's how that governs your training.
They're not running 8K worth of workout.
Right.
They're doing 10K plus. As we look right now, it's, who are the guys that you're out there in practice with? Well, right now, BYU, the thing that they're doing so well is their 5th runner is in 25th place. Well, guess who's in 6th place? The second Thompson twin. They're together, the 2 brothers, Creed and David Thompson. Look, are relatively unproven here at the NCAA championships, but they've had fantastic years, and they're next to each other and everything. At Nuttycombe, they were next to each other. At conference, they were next to each other. Neither ran the regional meet, and now you're here today, your 5th and 6th guys moving up in the pack together. It's huge.
Listen, that's a nice little safety valve there to have that guy in 6th, even though obviously we're not using that in the tiebreaker anymore, but that's a subject for a different day. But you look at NAU's 6th man, he's in 104th place when they went through the last time, and Oklahoma State's guy is in 90th. So at least now they're in a spot where you can almost lose one of the guys if you have to, because they're in a spot where they've got some insulation.
The race is going to be decided between the Thompson brothers and then Santiago Prosser and George Cush of NAU. They're all on top of each other, and actually right in front of them is more BYU guys. So if NAU can just finish up this race with a really strong final 2-3K, they can pass all the bodies that they need to really pull out this thing and extend that dynasty 1 year longer.
So you look at that pack right there, is Isai Rodriguez, he's in orange, and then Dylan Jacobs in there, he's in orange, and there's a difference, right? OSU is America's brightest orange, and then I think Tennessee's might be the most recognizable orange because they all look like creamsicles as they go through there. But they've really changed that program under Sean Carlson in just one year. He's hit the transfer portal. He's had a couple of really good guys that stayed over from the squad that Beth Alford Sullivan put together, and he came not quite what he wanted to in the SEC, but put together a really nice race at regionals with the team he thought he was going to have. There you go. Look at that. See, you use that downhill, right? Open up those arms and just let gravity take you through.
It looks like Bosley came off that hill and said, you know, maybe this is time to make a move. Carrie, when we were running the course yesterday, we said that these hills are so steep that you're almost running out of control down them. And if your momentum is saying, hey, it's time to go, maybe that's where you make your move.
Yeah, and you can tell that the NAU guys had put so much trust in what their coach has to say. They've gone through this course, they know it, they've been visualizing it. And, you know, for them to be able to have that strength that they get from running at that high altitude and also going up and down the mountains, that is really important. The downhills are so hard here. People talk about the uphills, but keeping your control, keeping your composure on the downhill is crucial. Now they're starting to attack again. Look at how they attack. They go up on those toes, they drive those knees, driving those arms. It is really hard to get up, but once you are, it's like check box, here we go, 2 to go.
In that second pack there was a kind of a burgundy blur, a crimson blur, and I thought, oh, well, we're finally getting a glimpse of Victor Kiprop. It wasn't. That was a hog on the front of that. That's Patrick Kiprop coming over from Fayetteville and representing for Arkansas, who's been on the podium the last 2 years. Maybe not quite great this year cross country. They're gearing up because indoor and outdoor, that squad is loaded in Fayetteville. Coming up, now it's 8K, so this is the race now. Here who would like to come through and show me where that training is going to take him over these final 2K?
Now we see Hicks go to the lead. He's starting to push. This is smart. You know, we have a lot of times where you want to wait till that final K, but this right here is where you can make a move, establish yourself, and if you have enough to hold on that final push before you make the final turn, that is really where you win it. But, you know, everyone is answering the call right now. The guys get right back up on his shoulder.
The other part here, Carl, like none of these guys are strangers, right? They've run around each other, whether it's in cross country or on the track at the 10K, right? This is basically the same final we saw in Eugene, the 10K. A lot of these people here, like they know what they're up against. There aren't a lot of secrets here.
Yeah, and they know that Nico Young has run 13:11 for 5K. They know that he's actually quite a great miler. We saw that last year during the indoor season. And Charles Hicks admits, I don't have a great kick. And that's why with 2K left, he's the one up front making the decision to push it because you got to get away from Nico. He can close.
He is the only guy that ever, like I've always thought, if you go to a PGA Tour event, there's not a PGA Tour pro that will say he can putt. But if you come to here, everybody thinks they have the best kick. Every distance runner's convinced, oh, if I leave it to the last 400, I'm good. I'll take care of this. It doesn't happen that way.
Well,
you don't all have the best kick.
Charles Hicks, 4th here last year. You know he wants to have a kick. He wants to be able to outrun everybody. That is something that he has been thinking about day after day, only 3 spots away from breaking the tape. And now it's interesting to see that the two NAU guys starting to push again. Charles Hicks just following suit and just getting right behind them.
He's doing his job, but behind him, Nerd Nation has fallen off a little bit. 46, 50, and 55, 3, 4, 5 when they come through. We're down to the last 1,500. Anybody going to run, what is it, 335? What was your mark?
334, but I don't think that's happening today. Look, we've got 3 of the teams in it right now that we thought were going to be here, and it's in the final 2K. they're all next to each other. This is the front 40 guys in this race are more or less NAU, BYU, and Oklahoma State. If you can close here, you can make up that 15-second differential in no time. And the one guy that I continue to watch is Victor Shitsama from Oklahoma State. He's in 37th, and he's coming up.
Yep, and he's had finishes here, 29th and 26th. So he's run up to the top of the pack before. He's been in a crucial scoring position for them, but that number they keep dialing down the number, 85, 90, and now 100 from those top three. And listen, Stanford has a ton of work to do here in this last K, where the drought's going to continue and be at 20 years. It's going to be another podium, but this is one of those squads that didn't come here to podium.
Charles said yesterday nothing would help his team more in the race than getting 1 point. And this is a little different than a lot of individual races that we've seen in the past. These teams are very much in it from the first stick to the fifth. And we haven't seen a team pull off both the team and individual winner since Galen Rupp and Oregon did it in 2008.
Now we have to look to see, right, when was the last time that both winners had the champion and the individual winner? My man Tyler's going to be all over that now that we've laid it down. So they go through 9K. Charlie Hicks in front. Now Nico Young, Bosley, Hicks, Isaid Rodriguez, sixth-year guy. Listen, if he doesn't have the COVID year, he's not here, and he's really come back. He was involved in a horrific car accident, fiery, scary. He said it took a long time. The bumps and bruises healed. He got out of there, was so fortunate, but mentally to come back and be ready to run. And he's having an unbelievable performance. And Casey Klingler right there. And Parker Wolf, how about a shout out to the Tar Heels and UNC? What a run he's making.
Alex Mayer made a huge move at this point in the race at the Cowboy Jamboree. I'm watching him right now. He was in 9th place. If he can be on the front end of that second pack, that is the points that OSU desperately needs right now.
If you can judge by facial expressions, Charlie Hicks looked the least uncomfortable going up the hill.
He needs to do this right now, though. He still has Nico Young right there with him. He has to power up this final hill and make sure that he can run that kick out of Nico Young, because we know Nico Young is fast.
He's still very much there, though. You know, you take a few hard steps and you're on his shoulder. I feel like this is a measured move right now for Nico. Nico just wants to be able to sniff it. He just wants to be able to see it a little bit with 200 meters when they turn the corner and are there.
So they've dropped Bosley pretty much when it comes through here, and now Charlie, he's got that last 200-meter hill to go through, but Oklahoma State, we saw Rodriguez and we saw Mayer make their move, and right now, with 400 meters left, quarter of a mile, Oklahoma State's guys have come through. This is going to be those two. BYU, they've dropped a spot, but they can still make some hay. And Stanford, I don't know, they've got time to get this done. They don't have, I think they'll run out of real estate.
The crowd just went wild behind us when it popped up on screen that OSU is now in first place. It's only by 4 points. It's going to be everything in the kick. And I don't know if the coaches have communicated to their athletes how close it is going to be, but you need to bleed in order to get every single body right now across the line as quickly as possible.
So we'll remind people as the team scores come up on the left-hand side, those aren't official until they do, the double checking and the recounting. But what a day could be for Oklahoma State. You could win a national championship, and the football team later today could go down to Norman and put a beating on OU for Bedlam, and that would make it one of the all-time great days. Here comes the kick, and Charlie's got a little grit to him. Nico Young giving chase.
Charles Hicks looking out of the corner of his eye, not really turning back, but there, Nico Young took a look back. It is Charlie Hicks that has to be the one to beat, and he looks good right now. Nico Young's going hard, though.
Charlie Hicks, Nerd Nation, first across the line. Now where his teammates come, NAU. They've got a low stick at 2. Bosley trying to hang on. OSU coming hard. Dylan Jacobs is in there. Iverson. NAU comes through. That's a good spot for him. A couple of Cowboys come through. Dylan Jacobs is there. Wolf. Misidentified. Graham Blanks. My apologies. Graham Blanks, who, by the way, you said was going to be a guy.
Fode Messoudui from Morocco for OSU. An absolutely huge race for him in 4th. But where is Victor Shitsana? He's coming down the straightaway right now. Every single body counts. All of these guys in the team score.
Kiprop from Arkansas comes through. There goes 2 more Cowboys across the line. Looks like they'll get their 5 in. Oklahoma State 5, 8, 11, 29, 30 in the preliminary. Northern Arizona a point better at this point as they come through in 35th. The closest race ever here has been 1 point.
These are not official results.
Not official right now.
We're going to go to the camera for every single place. This is so tight.
Wake Forest comes through.
It is important to call out the tiebreaker of what would happen if they end up tying. We go man to man. Whoever has the best mano a mano of the top 5. And in that scenario, it would go to Northern Arizona. So if they do tie, NAU would pull it out. We're going to go to the cameras, see every single body.
We've had a 1 point men's differential. That was back in 1970 when Villanova, that wasn't you, right? You didn't go to school with those people in 1970?
No, I didn't.
Villanova, 1 point better than Oregon in 1970. It was 85-86. Here we're looking at an 82-83. And did Mike Smith get the better? No, we've done some readjusting now. As more guys come in, now it's Oklahoma State that's come through by a bunch as they reconnoiter the numbers here and redo some of the arithmetic and the math. And Oklahoma State now with a comfortable margin.
I mean, can you imagine?
So what was close, here's Murph coming across for Arkansas. There's an Oregon Duck under new management, right, with Jerry Schumacher running that program for the first time. There's another Tennessee Volunteer.
But how much fun, Kyle, to win on your home course, if that is what the case is. But right now we're looking at this score, and it's going back and forth and back and forth. What a day.
So this is not like high school. We do not go to the 6th man here. Again, the tiebreaker is we compare man versus man in the top 5. Northern Arizona gets 1 point. Their first man was ahead of Oklahoma State. They get a 2nd point. Their second man was ahead. Oklahoma State gets a point on the 3rd. So right now it's 2-1. Northern Arizona gets them at the 4th position for 3 out of the top 5. So if it does remain as a tiebreaker, would go to NAU. And we said it beforehand, we needed Brody Hasty to come through, and boy did he ever. He finished in 25th place.
And if it was a 6th man, that would go to Oklahoma State because their 6th man right now under the current scoring as guys coming across the line would be 50th to 79th. But we're not, this isn't high school anymore. We're running 10K and we're running for the national championship.
I knew it was going to happen.
Right now, as it looks through, Northern Arizona, Oklahoma State tied to be settled by a tiebreaker, which is, as Kyle laid out, would go to the Lumberjacks.